Okay, today I'll be reading from this book called Ignis by Gina Wilson, illustrated by PJ Lynch, for a school project. If you're on my channel for Minecraft videos, I'm really sorry. Those will be coming along shortly, but I'm still having some trouble finding a good screen capture program. If you have any suggestions to that, please comment on this video. Okay, so this is Ignis. Oh, that's Ignis. This is where he lives. Ignis lived with his sister Flamma and Grand Dragon. They had their own warm, dark cave in Dragonland, which is a secret place no bigger than the village, hidden in rocks at the foot of a very steep mountain. Ignis had fiery red scales, flaring nostrils, and a spiky tail. His wings, depending on the weather, opened like silk umbrellas or gossamer parasols. His friends all admired him very much. Some even wished they were him instead of themselves. He could run the fastest and fly the highest. But Ignis was sad. Every night he sat at the back of his cave, huffing and puffing till he thought he would burst. But not a single flame ever appeared, not a flicker. Grand Dragon stirred her pot. All in good time. Never worry. Come and light stars with me, said Flamma. You might just get the hang of it without thinking. Keep it down! But Ignis wasn't comforted. He couldn't light stars, and he couldn't start the cave fire to boil the kettle. He couldn't play a single flame or all blaze together. He could only watch. His best friend, Scintilla, watched with him. She warmed him with her amber eyes. I love you anyway. I love you too, said Ignis, but it's no good unless I find my fire. I don't feel like a dragon at all. Maybe I'm really something else. One dawn, Ignis set off into the thick forest that ran all the way around the foot of the mountain. In the river he spotted Poto floating along with just his eyes showing. Hello, said Poto oozily. Come on in if you like. So Ignis spent the morning slowly flowing along the current, in the afternoon caking his scales with mud, but by evening he knew he wasn't a hippo. His mouth was much too small, and he was worried the water might rust his scales. You're a wonderful friend, he told Poto, but I'll have to be on my way. I'm not really a hippo, you know. Poto laughed, but I can see that little puff of smoke. You're a dragon. But where's my fire, said Ignis. Inside, said Poto, a blessed place when you're swimming. Ignis waved goodbye. I won't forget you, he called, and felt a friendly lick of flame and flaring inside his chest. He gave a cough and then another, but it wouldn't come out. The next day, Ignis awoke under a shady tree. Hello, said Lukacs from a branch. Come on up if you like. So Ignis spent the morning flying between the sun and the treetops, and the afternoon shrieking his head off. But by evening he knew he wasn't a parrot. He didn't have a beak, and he wasn't tickling all over with feathers. You're a wonderful friend, he told Lukacs, but I'll have to be on my way. I'm not really a parrot, you know. Lukacs laughed so heartily his best tail plume dropped out. I can see that handsome little nostril nose. You're a dragon. But where's my fire, said Ignis. Inside, said Lukacs. Best place when you're flying. When Ignis waved goodbye, the heat in his chest felt like a sore burning place. I'll never forget you, he called, and sighed deeply, and sighed again, but still no flames came out. The next morning, Ignis woke on the very farthest side of the mountain, as far from Dragonland as could be. Kara was sitting there on a little locked gate, swinging her legs. You must be a really real dragon. I might be, but where's my fire? Inside, with any luck. We don't want you setting these trees alight. The gate's bolted to keep out forest monsters while I'm staying with my gran. But you can fly over it if you want to. Maybe I'm a monster. No, you're beautiful, said Kara. So Ignis flapped over into Kara's grand's garden. They spent the morning climbing trees and making daisy chains, and the afternoon eating Grand's strawberry ice cream. I've had a wonderful time, Ignis said in the evening, but I'll have to move on, because though I look like a dragon, I won't feel like one until I've found my fire. I know, said Kara, but do stay longer. We could have more wonderful times, then you could search for your fire. So Ignis stayed with Kara for a week. They ate honey from Grand's hives and cookies from the jar in the pantry. They lay in the shade, sucking grass stems and swapping stories about dragons and human beings. One moment it seemed as if being a human being was best, and the next being a dragon. And sometimes it seemed as if being a human being and a dragon together was the best of all. Kara said that with Ignis beside her, she wasn't frightened of monsters anymore. She unbolted the garden gate, and while Grand was dozing, she and Ignis slipped out into the forest. They hid behind tree trunks and waited. At last, when all was soundless and still, save the faint shushing of breezes and twittering of jewel birds, the slothily silent ones came dangling down from the branches and dappled lengths and stretches. At a tiny grasp from Kara, they jerked upwards, out of sight again. "Oh, they're frightened of me," she exclaimed. That night, Ignis flew Kara up past the stars, higher than he'd ever been before. They paddled in bubbling moon streams. They sat on the dark shore and watched the almost invisible night gazelles stealing down to drink. Back they glided to Grand's house, Kara fast asleep on Ignis's back, his wings curved to keep her from falling. At the end of the week, they sat sadly, knowing it was time for goodbye. "We've had lots of wonderful times," sighed Kara. "I knew we would, but I'm going home tomorrow. School starts on Monday. I can't wait to tell my best friend about you." "I have a best friend too, but I'm not going home until I've found my fire." Kara kissed him. "For luck," she whispered. "I know you'll find it, and then you'll go home. I can always imagine you playing with those hundreds of other dragons." She skipped away. Ignis's heart felt fiery. "Remember me," he shouted. Of course," Kara shouted back. "This has been my dragon summer. You only get one." Ignis sat in a heap. Beyond the gate, the forest looked dark and sick, and he was certain he'd never find anything else in it that was as good as what he'd found already. "This time I'll climb to the top of the mountain," he thought. "I haven't looked there." He panted up the track, feeling lonely and sad without Kara. His heart was still fiery, but his gasps wouldn't turn into flames. Higher up the mountain was icy and white. "I'd just melt this all in a couple of puffs if I were a real dragon." He thought of Poto, the real hippo, and Lokax, the real parrot, and Kara, the real little girl, all happily playing with their friends. And he could feel a great burst of fire blazing away inside him, but it wouldn't come out. He slumped down and buried his head in his wings. Then he pictured Scintilla waiting to hear about all the forest and its inhabitants, and all about the mountain, and whatever might be waiting at the top. But I don't even know that myself. Up he jumped and kept on climbing. The top of the mountain was covered with silvery powder, like the ash of Grand Dragon's cave fire. It puffed up in a glittering cloud. Above him, the highest peak of all shone in the sunset, orange and yellow and pink, like flame, thought Ignis. But when at last he arrived, there was only a deep, dark hole. "Volcano," he whispered. He poked his head over the side. The hole was as black as night. It was sooty and bottomless. "But its fire's gone out." He turned away. There was nothing here. All he wanted was a safe, warm cave of home. He covered his eyes and began to cry. At that moment, the very last spark from the volcano's very last eruption, 100 years ago, came wandering out into the open, weak and wavering, looking for somewhere to light. With a sob and a gulp, it was sucked straight in through Ignis's open mouth. Hick, his throat filled with a hot little gurgle. He opened his eyes. An orange flicker of ribbon was streaming out in front of him. He danced around the zigzaggy rim of the crater and disappeared. "Harumph," Ignis cleared his throat, but gently. Nothing happened. He scraped it hard. He coughed. He sneezed. Nothing happened. Then, just as he was giving up again, he felt another smoky choke and more ribbons flew out along the shiny yellow streamers and blue curls of smoke. Fire, he shouted before it vanished. Fire, fire, fire. The more he shouted, the more fiery the ribbon became. He jumped up and down. He stood on his head. He ran in circles. The fire did the same. It's me. My fire's coming out. He puffed and puffed. It is. Only when he was totally, absolutely certain he was right did he dare stop puffing for a second. He flopped flat out on the mountaintop under the stars till his breath came back. Then he started again. All night long, Ignis perched on the topmost peak, practicing. Then when the sun began to rise, he floated sleepily back towards Dragonland. Here comes a really real dragon, he sang, circling over Graham's house where Kara might wake from her dreams and catch sight of him, and over Locax's tree, and over Poto's river. The grey wise elders of Dragonland were yawning and scratching their head as Ignis glided down. There you are, you naughty, naughty dragonlet, they scolded. You could have been burned alive. The mountains have been exploding all night. Was it like this? Said Ignis, puffing out a small stream of flame. No, it wasn't. That's just a twinkly little dragon torch, scoffed the grey wise elders. We're talking mysteries and miracles and flames that light up the world. Gert Dragon beamed from the entrance to the cave and stirred her pot at top speed. All in good time, she hummed. Never worry. Just then Flamma and Scintilla and all the Ignis' other friends came running. Ignis turned his face up to the sky and roared out a towering flame. Mountain fire, gasped Flamma. No, dragon fire, said Ignis. No, Ignis Fire, whispered Scintilla. Ignis billowed another blaze sky high and spread his wings. Come on, what shall we play today? And that's the end of it. Most videos after this point on my channel will be Minecraft videos to anybody watching this, by the way.